Joining me now, the nation's Joan Walsh, Mother Jones' David Corn, and Kurt Bardella, former aide to Republican Darrell.
Schumer's a bad leader, not a natural leader at all. He works hard to study leadership. When you have to study leadership, you got problems. He is a poor leader, known him a long time, and he's leading the Democrats to doom. It's sad to see for our country what's happening to the Democrat Party.
Kurt, what did you think was kind of going through Trump's mind there, and almost an obituary-esque statement about his relationship with the minority party in Congress?
Well, I mean, he's trying to set up the Democrats for being the reason why his agenda stalls on Capitol Hill, why things that he promises like tax reform or the repeal and replace of Obamacare don't happen. He's trying to put that at the feet of Chuck Schumer, despite the fact that, as everybody knows, the reason why Obamacare is still the law of the land is because he can't get his own party's house in order, as Republicans, the most conservative Republicans, are the ones who blocked that repeal and replace the first time down. But it's just very telling that Trump is always in search of an enemy, always in search of someone to blame. And we saw his success in the presidential primary, where he had 16 other Republican candidates to foil off of and kind of, you know, point fingers at what's broken. He had Hillary Clinton to foil off of in the general, and then he became the president. And then he started pointing fingers at the media and now at Chuck Schumer. It's always somebody else's fault. There's no accountability. And it's just telling that the same president that he was on day 1 and 2, it's the same president he is on day 100. It's going to be the same president he's going to be on day 1,000 if he gets that far.
Right, and you talk about the finger pointing. Joan, Kurt mentions multiple human beings. At the rally, right, he also pointed the finger at an animal that he has brought up before. Take a listen.
Know what we're going to have? We're going to have problems. We have to very, very carefully vet. We have to be smart. We have to be vigilant. So here it is, the snake. It's called the snake. Instead of saying thank you, that snake gave her a vicious bite. "I have saved you," cried the woman, "and you've bitten me, heavens why? You know your bite is poisonous, and now I'm going to die."
Joan?
Ari?
Joan?
Ari, that's
Joan,
completely, it's just completely insane. I don't know where to go with it, but yes, now we have snakes that we must fear. Yeah, it was a very terrifying moment.
He first, I mean, for students of Trump political history, David, he first brought out that story, which is based on sort of an old blues song poem, in January 2016, early in the campaign. And it's almost like he's just going back to what are his greatest hits. Of course, as has been well documented, his greatest hits are not his greatest hits. They tend to be co-opted statements like Reagan, who said, "Make America Great Again," or Charles Lindbergh, who said, "America First," or this being a song. And by the way, viewers of The Point may know I don't have a problem quoting songs. I do have a problem turning songs into public policy. And the question is, what does the snake poem tell us, if anything, about immigration policy?
Well, you know, the issue here is, Ari, at what point can you say that the President of the United States is a man who is somewhat unhinged? I mean, we've had in the last week him saying a couple of times, "Gosh, didn't know this job would be so hard. Huh, you know, I thought it'd be easier." We had him, you know, in an interview a few days ago, tell a Washington Post reporter, "You know what you guys should do? You should put a map of the Electoral College victory, my Electoral College victory, on the front page of the Washington Post." Again. I mean, these are not the statements of a balanced, rational individual who has a good sense of his place in the world and who is a responsible adult. And I know it's scary and sounds hyperbolic to say all these things, but I don't know what other conclusions we can come to that Donald Trump is just not a mature individual.
David Corn, I want to pause on that point, and everyone can let it sink in because some of it is potentially concerning. Joan, David, and Kurt all stay, so the panel will be back with me later on in the show. With me now is journalist David Corn, Tara Daldell, a Democratic operative who first met Donald Trump on The Apprentice as a contestant, and our resident expert on all things Breitbart and conservative media, former Breitbart spokesman Kurt Bardella. Kurt, I want to play for you another president, Bill Clinton, who had his own disagreements with the press, because sometimes this thing can get so Trump-focused we lose the larger arc of it. Here's Bill Clinton in those old impeachment days.
You don't want to go here, Peter. You don't want to go here. not after what you people did, and the way your network, what you did with Kenneth Starr, the way your people repeated every little sleazy thing he leaked.
So that was, 6 years on later from the underlying incident, and Bill Clinton, you could see the vigor there that he felt and that he put forward, and a lot of his allies liked that side of him. Very different underlying stories, like we can all stipulate that. But Kurt, speak to the larger arc.
Well, I think the larger arc here is, for Trump to win this narrative, the media would have to become complacent. And if on day 200, the media just begins to accept that, Trump's going to say these things, he's going to call us fake news, and they play into that while missing the really broader, important stories that need to be told, the broader in-depth investigations that need to happen. Trump puts out a lot of these things really to distract everyone. It's like catnip. And he's hoping that the so-called urgent gets in the way of the important for media companies, and that they spend every minute of every day analyzing every single tweet, what was behind that tweet, palace intrigue, who's leaking to who, instead of spending time talking about conflicts of interest within the White House, talking about what happened really with Russia and the Trump campaign. He's hoping that by doing these things, the media just gets distracted. And ultimately, good journalism, investigative journalism, media companies putting resources into that's going to be the best weapon in commanding all of this.
And Tara, it can be so distracting. I don't know if you ever listened to the R&B singer Khaled, but he says, I don't want to fall in love off of subtweets. And there's a limit to how much you want to be just scouring anyone's social media, whether it's an ex or the president, when you have real life to live. But I want to look again, because we wanted to look at the history. Richard Nixon, who came up earlier, he loved to turn it and try to make it about the reporter. This obviously predates this administration. Here's Richard Nixon in a great exchange with Dan Rather.
Are you running for something? No, sir, Mr. President, are you?
That's a 1974 snap right
1974 burn.
But Donald Trump, he lives off that back and forth that you can do with a reporter.
Exactly. That's exactly what he lives off. He wants to pull the media into the mud with him. That's what he wants to do. And to Kurt's point, investigate, investigate, investigate. And so I think that when you're dealing with Donald Trump, he's one of the most media-savvy people to ever occupy the Oval Office. And people shouldn't forget that. And responding to every tweet, responding to everything, it allows him to be out front and to control the narrative. And it also distracts, as Kurt referenced, it distracts from all the things that are going on, all the important that needs to be reported, and that is not lost on Donald Trump.
Real quick, when you were on The Apprentice, did you ever think you were looking at a future president?
I did not think I was looking at a future president, no. And it was also interesting to see how his positions have shifted since those days as well.
Do you miss him? Do you miss working with him on the show?
No, I do not.
Okay. Well, that's the final question. Tara Dowdell, David Corn, Kurt Bardella, thank you all. Hope to see you on The Point again soon.